Hello YouTube, welcome back. I'm Awaken here, and we are going to be putting a space station into Kerbin orbit today at around 100 kilometers for the purposes of docking in a future tutorial. Now these early space stations I like building with manned capabilities in mind, just because they can't really lose connection and you don't have to worry about battery power as much. It's still nice to have though. Alright, so you want to put a hitchhiker on here so you have some extra room for your Kerbals so that they have a staging area. Let's go over to structural. I usually add, where is it? This one down here so it can be somewhat symmetrical when we put the docking ports on. Speaking of the docking ports, let's throw them on. Make sure that they are pointed in these directions, otherwise they will not dock. If it is in this direction, you will just bounce, which made me be very frustrated the first time I played and tried docking. I had two senior docking ports, and they are much harder to distinguish which side is up, which side is down. And they just kept on hugging each other and not connecting. Alright, perfect. Now let's get some simple solar panels on here so we don't run out of electricity, even though it's not super necessary for this, but it is nice to have for the SAS purposes. Now, control, we want to have some RCS on here just so we have some translation capabilities while we're up there. And you want to put on the same line as the center of mass here so that you don't have to worry about weird issues, because if they are all down here it might be difficult to control, especially if you don't have sufficient SAS, but having them in the center reduces your reliance on SAS in order to maintain a certain heading. Alright, so this is pretty much ready to go at this point. Normally I do like adding a extra junior docking port on the side here, just one, and perhaps some extra RCS, which will be useful in the future. Alright, so this is 4.8 tons, which is fine. I'm going to name this KSS core, and I've already made a few of these, but I keep on slipping, so yes, we are going to overwrite that. If it's yours, don't overwrite it, because you might have a different Kerbal Space Station core, I'm not sure. Now, we need to get this thing up into space. So this upper stage here, you don't really need much, just a little bit to bump yourself that extra distance to finish up your orbit. So if we get a Terrier, as we did in the first video on how to orbit, the Delta V when in space is absolutely spectacular. TD-12. Alright. And we're not going to do two of these because there's not enough thrust-to-weight ratio in order to get up there with the swivel. Alright, let's throw the swivel on there, and our weight is now 15 tons. Now we're going to copy this, holding Alt and clicking on it, and go to coupling. I'm a fan of side boosters that feed the central. It's just more efficient, and it gives you a better takeoff capacity. Usually, not always. Depends how you build your craft. And we are going to add these fuel tanks on here and make it a little bit more aerodynamic. Alright, perfect. Perhaps lower this a little bit so it's not jamming into it. Alright, there we go. And space tape. Alright, now we need to make sure that we are staged correctly. Put all the bottom engines in the bottom stage. Then the sides pop off, and then you're left with the center core here, and this will activate once ready. Now we have 37 tons and 48 tons to lift off, so we have plenty to get going, and this should be plenty to get into orbit. Hopefully I'm not wrong on that one. I guess we're about to find out, but this should be enough. I'm trying to think of any other structural needs. Now, these fuel pipes do act sort of like struts. They're not as strong, I believe, but they do work. By always like having an extra set just in case. Alright, let's get to the launch pad. This is a very inexpensive aircraft. Great for campaign missions. Alright, save and launch. Alright, we have nothing to dock with right now, so we're just going to launch right away. Yeah, let's just launch right away. I was checking because I might want to do a rendezvous in the first orbit, but it's not really, doesn't really make sense. So ZT and then space. Double check here, or don't hit space quite yet. But double check your staging. Everything is right. And let's go. Now, this craft, because it is, I can't say top heavy, but the aerodynamics of the craft are very top heavy, if you know what I mean. So if you tilt this too quickly, it will flip and spin, and these swivels do not have the capability of handling that. On yours, if you are finding problems with it, you might want to add some fins here, such as winglets or what have you. But it's not necessary if you pilot it right. So I've been writing a bunch of papers recently. It's kind of stressful, but it's life. It's college life. I'm a poli-sci student right now. I'm going to get some water real quick. And today I'm writing a paper on little funny mustachioed man's rise to power in Germany in the 1930s. I don't want to say his name because YouTube doesn't like it, I guess. At least that's what I've heard from other people while watching their videos. And it's quite interesting, and it's due Tuesday, I think. I am not really procrastinating, but I do work better under pressure. So we are at 20 kilometers right now. It might be safe to lean over a little bit, but nothing too extreme, because you will have a lot of aerodynamic forces on this. But it should be safe to lean over properly at 30 kilometers, which we are nearing. Alright, I'm going to switch over to the map screen. Alright, I'm going to start leaning over to the 45 degree mark. Or 90 degree heading, 45 degree attitude. Alright. We should have plenty of delta V to get into orbit, but it's kind of sketchy at this point. Yeah, we're a little tight. A little tight. I think we'll make it into orbit. I guess we're about to find out. I'm going to have to use some of this RCS for the last few meters. Because you want to go for about 2250. Which means we only have about 300 wiggle room. Alright, once you're above the atmosphere, your apoapsis, it is safe to lean completely over on the horizon. Sorry for all the clicking noises. I have a mechanical keyboard and my mic picks up on everything. Maybe I'll improve that in the future. I'm not really sure. But we'll see. Alright, just monitor your apoapsis here. Once this hits 100K, you are going to want to break off your throttle, but we'll be swapping stages here soon. We might only have 100 or 200 meters of delta V spare after this, which is fine. It's less than I'd like to have, but especially for a tutorial mission. But that just means this craft was optimally designed, I guess, but we didn't have the best launch profile due to the aerodynamics of the craft. Alright, so it looks like we're going to have an 80K circular. We might not actually make it to orbit. Let's see. Yeah, it'll definitely be tough. We might have to use RCS for a bit. Which I guess will show you guys the backup method when you just need a few more meters per second. Alright, so the apoapsis does not reach 100K, which is fine. You can angle up to 10 or 20 degrees attitude to slowly raise your apoapsis, which is rising now. We are losing the T, which means that we are approaching the apoapsis faster than it is rising. We might have a lower orbit here. We might have 80K. But the craft that docks with this can push it back up to 100K properly. So, like I said, it'll be a way to rendezvous and fix things in a future video instead of just rendezvous. I do think we will get into orbit, but it'll be very tight. I think we will have less than 100 meters per second, but we'll see. We are in a lower orbit, which means that we do need a higher velocity. I think we'll make it. I think it'll just be very tight. Alright, I'm going to physics warp here. Going to angle back up to 10 degrees attitude. Now you guys will get better at orbiting and launching spacecraft as time goes on. I was trying to fine-tune this. What I'd recommend in yours, if you wanted more wiggle room than this, is the side boosters that we had. If you had 3 or 4 of those around the central booster, it'll give you significantly more delta V once you're up here. Yeah, we are very tight. I do not like this. Yeah, I'm going to cruise into the Apple apps because we need to have full efficiency at this point. Alright. Okay, so we don't even have a periapsis. Alright, well let's remove this. RCS, and then H will push you forward. We might not have enough monopropellant for this. It should be interesting. Okay, looks like we'll be fine, but you might want to add those extra boosters to the side. But this is some extra Kerbal stuff here, having to use monopropellant to get up. Okay, we're at 2200. Physics warp. We might need to get out and push, folks. Alright, let's see. 2250, 2250. I think we'll make it, but it's going to be very tight. Well, I think on a rendezvous craft, we might have to bring up some extra monopropellant just to refuel this. Alright, let's get this more efficient. Alright, just above 69. We have to get out and push. Alright. We are in a safe orbit now. We have almost no monopropellant left. Let's turn off the RCS and orient northwards. In our next mission, we will rendezvous with this, and it won't be a perfectly circular orbit, so should be interesting. And it's not at the desired orbit either, so I guess the rendezvous craft will dock on either this port or this port, so we can just push it into its desired orbit. All right. Next video.